Hi folks, welcome to your weekly Lanzarote news, and I should warn you that there's going to be a little bit of a rant later on in this video, so stay tuned. I'll put it somewhere probably in the middle of it so that you can see me have a right old rant. But first the news. There's a plan that's been put forward by the Cabildo with quite a lot of money behind it to remove the invasive species that are appearing in Timman Fire. And you'll know that Timman Fire is the place where the eruptions took place in the 1730s, and it is a protected area. It's part of a Biosphera reserve, and there are species that are there now that shouldn't be. One example is the Moorish tobacco tree, which presumably has come over with seeds being blown over from the Saharan coast of Morocco. So they're going to be taken out. There are two other plants, and I mean the press release gives the Latin names and I don't really know what they translate to, but two other plants apparently that are all over there that shouldn't be there, so they're going to be taken out. And there's also an issue with rats apparently, which feral rats living in that area, which could harm other local wildlife, so they will be removed. And this project's going to take about 2 years, but it should get Timman Fire back to having only endemic species to the island on it. Fascinating news this week about vacation rentals. Now these are privately owned properties, although in many cases single owners or small companies own a number of them, but they're essentially privately owned properties that are rented out for holiday lettings. And there's been a growth of over 30% in the last 10 months. I've seen figures that go from June 2023 until the end of April, so the end of last month. And across the Canaries, the growth has been just over 30%. But here in Lanzarote, the growth has been over 53%. The numbers are huge, and this is part of the reason we have an issue with, in inverted commas, over-tourism on the islands at the moment, because this sector has grown so much. I did a quick sum based on an average of 3 beds in each of these properties, and the growth in Lanzarote over the last 10 months has given us 8,000 more beds in that sector alone. When you think that the biggest hotel on the island only has 1,400 beds, you can see where the growth has come over the last 10 months. New car sales picked up in March. They showed a growth from January and February, although the first quarter figure is a little bit behind the first quarter of 2023. It's an indicator that the economy is doing quite well here, and we certainly had good GDP growth this year so far versus last year. But it's always a bit skewed because so much of the business on this island are car rental registrations. So, you know, it's when they get a deal and they get 55 new Renault Clios or Volkswagen Golfs or whatever on, that can really skew the figures. But the trend is looking good on new car registrations on the island. I was delighted to see that the Plaza de As Palmas in Arrecife, which is the lovely little square, or it should be a lovely little square, right in front of the Iglesia de San Ginés, the Church of San Ginés there, is going to have a full renovation. It was originally designed by Cesar Manrique, and it's just got a bit tatty and run down in the last few years. There are some beautiful Canarian palms there, but their roots are sort of pushing up the pavement in various places, and it just needs a bit of work done on it. And the project has now been approved. It's going to be about 700,000 euros, and that will be repaired and replaced, which is really good news for the capital. Just a reminder, please, to help us out by subscribing to our channel below. It will help us greatly to grow our reach on YouTube. Something we're desperately trying to do to become more useful to more people on the island. Lanzarote Information, the website, does very well already, but we'd love your help and your support on YouTube. And just remember that if you leave a comment below with a question or whatever, I will always read it, and I will generally answer your question or find out the answer to it if I don't already know it. So thanks very much for your subscriptions. The Canarian Parliament are also considering introducing fees for visiting protected spaces within the islands. So, for example, we're talking here maybe a €2 or €3 entry fee if you're going to visit Timman Fire or any of the other protected areas of this island. Unfortunately, a lot of the press have mistaken this as a tourist tax or an eco tax. that isn't the case. And actually, in the same plenary session where they talked about this fee for visiting protected areas, the Canarian government reaffirmed that they are not looking at putting a tourist tax on the island. Just to give you the difference, a tourist tax, you pay it, for example, in New York. You pay it in Venice. It's a fee you pay per night when you stay somewhere. That isn't on the cards for the Canary Islands, certainly in the foreseeable future. This is something a little bit different, which will be a small fee that you will pay when you're visiting protected areas, Biosphere Reserve areas and stuff like that. Very, very early days. I have no idea whether it's actually going to happen or not, but it's something they are looking at doing currently. Bit of a creepy one now. A body washed ashore in Arrecife, and the news has been released that she's been identified as a lady called Laura Gaston, who was a 66-year-old Belgian lady, and she disappeared in Adeje in Tenerife. Creepy because apparently her head was covered by a bag and her hands and feet were missing. And the initial investigation suggests that she met a violent death. So it doesn't sound like she fell into the water and then ended up being washed ashore here in Lanzarote. It sounds like she was killed and then dropped into the water. So I only read that this morning. I'll keep you posted on it as and when we get more news about it. Now, the Naviera Armas ferry, which is one of the two ferries that run regularly between Lanzarote and Coralejo in Fuerteventura, is being taken off to dry dock for some repairs at the moment. What Armas have decided to do is to bring over one of their super fast ferries. We've seen these on other islands and they're pretty impressive. High-speed catamarans, they'll do 34 knots. They carry about 900 passengers and about 200 cars. So they are replacing their usual ship, which is called Volcán de Tindaya, with one of these high-speed cats. My guess is it can't dock in Coralejo because it's too big. So they've decided it will run the route from Playa Blanca around the coast of Fuerteventura to Puerto del Rosario, which is the capital of Fuerteventura. And it's going to do the trip in 55 minutes. It will do it 3 times a day and it starts on Monday. So if you want to do a different trip to Fuerteventura, and I'm quite keen to do this myself, you might want to shoot over to Puerto del Rosario. And if nothing else, it gets you kind of halfway down the island of Fuerteventura. So if you're visiting the south, it's well worth using that service. Now it's time for my rant. Readers send me links to articles in newspapers from around the world all the time. But the one that was sent to me this week particularly irritated me. It appeared in the Cambridge News, not a publication I'm that familiar with. But it's the headline that really irritated me. And I'm reading it from my iPad now, word for word for you. It says, Tenerife Deputy Mayor tells Brits to go elsewhere as island cracks down on all-inclusive holidays. Now, it irritated me because just about every single word in that headline is not true. It's a lie. It starts off talking about Tenerife Deputy Mayor. Tenerife does not have a deputy mayor. Tenerife is an island. It has a president and a vice president. When I dug into it much deeper, I found out that the guy they're talking about is actually the deputy mayor of Santa Cruz, which is the city, the main city in Tenerife. So he's not the deputy mayor of Tenerife, he's the deputy mayor of Santa Cruz, which incidentally isn't even a tourist area of the island. It goes on to say that this Tenerife deputy mayor tells Brits to go elsewhere. Now, I read the text of what he said. He didn't mention the British at all in his text. He did not mention the British, but somehow this newspaper has turned it into tells Brits to go home. And then the last part of this headline, island cracks down on all-inclusive holidays. It doesn't. It hasn't. He didn't mention all-inclusive. He certainly didn't talk about a crackdown on all-inclusive. What he said was really quite innocuous. It was something along the lines of, we'd like to encourage more 4- and 5-star clients to the island people who will go out and eat in the local restaurants and enjoy our gastronomy and our cultural experiences and stuff like that. It really was a gentle, innocuous, relatively short comment that they've turned into an absolute lie, and it really irritates me. If you're by any chance connected in any way with cambridge-news.co.uk, if you're the editor, why do you do this? Why do you allow this to happen? It's really frustrating. Part of your job as an editor should be, at the very least, to check the headline that's being used to see if it bears any relation to the article in question, which it doesn't, or bears any relation to the truth, which it doesn't. Please, please stop it. I run a relatively big publication here in the Canary Islands, and I wouldn't allow any writer to do that. But it's all about the money, isn't it? Let's have a look at why you're using headlines like that. So I'm having to do this handheld, but this is the article in question on my iPad. And as you can see, there's the headline: Tenerife Deputy Mayor tells Brits to go elsewhere as island cracks down on all-inclusive holidays. And I said I'd answer the question why. Well, let's have a look at why by scrolling through this a little bit. Now, that headline, if you've got any interest in Lanzarote at all, is bound to attract you to click through and read the article. So here we are, we've arrived at this particular article, and we're going to scroll down the page. There's a picture of holidaymakers in Tenerife. Oh, we've come up to an auto-running video. Okay, so that's going to get this particular newspaper's views up on YouTube. And then we've got an advert, and it's in Spanish because it's aimed at me. So it knows that I'm based in Spain, and therefore it's serving me adverts from Spain. We'll scroll down a bit more. There's another advert for the Barcelo Hotel in Malaga. There's another advert for repairing your cars, again served in Spanish because it knows I'm here in Spain. That's 3 adverts. There's a big white space there, I don't know what that's going to be. There's another advert for Vueling flights, and immediately underneath it, one for the Barcelo Malaga again. That video's gone to the top right hand corner, so that's still running, so that will skew the video results for that particular person, even though I'm not using it. Oh, we've got something about filling in wrinkles there. More adverts, dermatology, more adverts, and so on and so forth. Well, that's why they're doing it, because you're going to click through and you're going to be exposed to all these adverts, and for every single one of them they'll get a fraction of a cent. But if they can get 100,000 people to visit this, or 1 million people to visit it, they will make money. You won't even remember the article because you'll read it and you think, well, yeah, right, that's not really such a big deal. But you've been exposed to all these adverts which go on and on and on. So that's why they do it. And also, while we're talking about transport, there is a new bus station and taxi station which is being built in Costa Teguise, and approval for that has just been given. I don't know when work will actually start, but it's in the area near the new Civic Centre by the roundabout by Colegio Arenas, the international school there. And it will have a bus station with a number of platforms, and also a taxi station. There'll be a ticket office in there, public toilets, and also a ticket kiosk where you can buy your tickets for the buses or the bonos. And in recent years, Costa Teguise has maintained its status as one of the large resorts of the island, but it's also become a real residential hub for people who live and work on the island. It's sort of almost like the commuter belt for Arrecife and Playa Honda, and a lot of the people in town will be able to use this new bus transport hub, if you like. Well, that's it for this week. Hope you enjoyed this week's news. Remember to subscribe so that you'll see it every week. Your news from your favourite island in the sun. Bye for now.